Rishi Sunak reshuffles UK cabinet.
Much has changed, but one of this crisis will last end.
Sacks Interior Minister Suella Braverman. Braverman fired over controversial comment.
To ask whether the refugee election has come to an end.
Called pro-Palestine rally hate march. James cleverly replaces Braverman. That is our top focus on 5 Live.
Supporters of Hamas are claiming first blood with the sacking of Suella Braverman, the Home Minister of the United Kingdom. That's the first big move by Rishi Sunak in the face of huge pro-Palestinian protests that have swept London and other parts of Europe in the weeks gone by. I'm Shiv. We're going to talk about what the sacking of the British Home Secretary actually means for the Israel-Gaza conflict and for the West at large. I'm Shiv. Thanks for being with me. These are the headlines. Deadliest phase of Israel's Hamas hunt as war rages near Gaza hospital. India votes for UN resolution slamming Israel's occupation of Palestinian territories. 145 nations vote in favor of UN resolution. Air quality in the national capital deteriorates as expected after Diwali. AQI above 500 in many parts of the national capital reaches hazardous levels. Delhi government hints at return of odd-even rule.
अगर 450 से प्लस अगर सीवियर प्लस कैटेगरी में अगर AQI जाता है तो फिर सरकार इसकी समीक्षा करके फिर निर्णय लेगी.
Politics erupts over pollution once again between AAP and BJP. Delhi government blames firecrackers for pollution, says BJP inciting those in the capital to burst crackers. BJP hits back, calls Aam Aadmi Party's statement shameful and anti-Hindu. Prime Minister Modi hits out at Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Baghel once again over Mahadev betting app allegation. Asks if Baghel sent some money to Delhi.
जांच एजेंसियों के छापों में रुपयों के ढेर पकड़े गए हैं. यहां के मुख्यमंत्री के करीबी जेल में बंद है.
Race against time to save 40 workers feared trapped in Uttarkashi tunnel collapse. Relief and rescue work on in full swing. Oxygen being supplied inside the tunnel. Workers reportedly safe. The first high-profile victim of the Israel-Gaza conflict is the Home Secretary of the United Kingdom. That's right, the high-profile Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, in effect the Home Minister of the United Kingdom, has just been sacked as Interior Minister by Prime Minister of UK, Rishi Sunak. This comes as pressure has mounted on Rishi Sunak to sack Suella Braverman after she was accused of stoking tensions ahead of Armistice Day violence. Basically, to break down for you what happened, Suella Braverman, who is the Home Minister of the United Kingdom, had written a column just a few days ago in the Times of London where she criticized the London police, accusing it of going soft on pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas protesters during the Armistice Day violence that swept different parts of London. Those are images of that particular protest. So Suella Braverman had last week defied Rishi Sunak by publishing an article attacking the police's handling of a march that took place on Saturday, a march which she described as a hate march. She was criticized for allegedly inflaming tensions. In an attack on the London police last week, she said that the police force was ignoring law-breaking by pro-Palestinian mobs, describing demonstrators calling for a ceasefire in Gaza as hate marchers. She added that the sick, inflammatory and in some cases clearly criminal chants placards and paraphernalia openly on display at the march marked a new low and said that anti-Semitism and other forms of racism, together with the valorizing of terrorism on such a scale, was deeply disturbing. On the one hand of it, you've got Suella Braverman, who is the Home Minister. So why is she writing a newspaper article instead of sorting out internal problems of the UK herself? Where was the need to do that? On the other hand, has Rishi Sunak, the British Prime Minister, basically bowed down to Islamist radicals and an increasingly assertive section of British society by sacking Suella Braverman as this controversy threatened to get completely out of control? I want to get first reactions in from Sushant Sareen. He's one of India's most well-regarded and well-known strategic affairs analysts and observers of what's been happening and the spillover effect of the Israel-Gaza conflict. He's also senior fellow with the Observer Research Foundation. Sushant, welcome. Thank you for your time. Gaurav is also with us. Sushant, to you first. I just wanted to quote what you said immediately after Suella Braverman was sacked. This is a post you put up on Twitter where you said, has Rishi Sunak just lost the next election? More importantly, by surrendering to the Islamist radicals, he's made them taste blood. Englistan is now fast becoming a reality in which a radical minority will exercise veto over pusillanimous majority. Explain that. That doesn't really need explaining, but Englistan is the word you've used. Rishi Sunak bowing to Islamist radicals. Mr. Sareen.
Yeah, so Shiv, about London, it's very often said that it's not London, it's Londonistan. So I just use that analogy.
Yes.
But what is very clear is the kind of approach that the Metropolitan Police in the UK seems to have used. At least that is what is visible to the naked eye. When you look at all the coverage coming in, there is very open, blatant anti-Semitism. There is violence taking place. There are these mobs who are attacking people. They are hurling slurs at Jews and other people. And yet, when you look at the attitude of the Metropolitan Police, it is that, okay, just let it be. We don't have the numbers. We can't take on these mobs. So we would rather give in. And when there is a pushback from somebody else, and I'm not talking about the right-wing, white racist mobs. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ordinary people, veterans and others, or for that matter, people of Jewish descent who hold up an Israeli flag or who push back against this whole river to the sea slogan, which is happening in many parts of the Western world. When they put up those posters, we've seen the police, push them away and say that,
yes,
look, you are being troublemakers. So we've seen some of that. And I think that is what Suella Braverman was to some extent reacting to. There could have been also an element of, their internal politics.
Yes.
And there was also this factor that there was a very strong lobby within the Conservative Party, which was pushing for her sacking. But the point is that there does seem to be a kind of polarization taking place in not just the UK, but also in other parts of the Western world on this particular issue.
Yes.
And there is only a 7% population of Muslims in the UK. And I'm not sure if all Muslims are on one side. But even if you assume that all of them are, a unified bloc, there is a 93% other population which does not necessarily subscribe, or at least a vast majority of them does not necessarily subscribe to the slogans that we are seeing on the streets. So Are you now giving this mob, which seems to be well organized, which seems to be, have nothing else to do so they can come out in numbers? We've seen that in the protests against India, haven't we? That suddenly you will see these huge mobs of Pakistani descent people who come out and will be agitating in front of the Indian High Commission and using violent and other, abusive language against them. So when you bring these people out on the streets, then you start exercising a kind of a veto on the streets. And most other people who just want to get by their life say, okay, fine, just, these are a bunch of hotheads, just give in to them. But the moment you give in to them, what you do is that you feed this monster. And then how do you rein them in later on? So that is seems to be happening right now.
And that's clearly happening. Even a cursory glance, Gaurav, at social media shows that there are so many supporters of the Hamas who are claiming first blood. They're seeing this as a victory. They're saying, you know, it is our resistance and our demonstrations and protests in London and, you know, European capitals that have resulted in this. They're actually seeing this as a victory for, Hamas. And that is dangerous. As Sushant said, you give in once, they smell blood.
Shiv, a spark neglected burns the house, and England clearly is ignoring a fire in their courtyard. It's not even a fire in their backyard anymore. When 300,000 people take to the streets, and 300,000 people, while they may talk about Palestine, but the sloganeering, the clothes that some of them are wearing, their headbands that they have are all to do with Hamas, and they chant slogans from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and death to Jews, and or words to that effect. It just goes on to indicate that England is living in very, very difficult times. This is something that Suella Braverman also wrote about in her article, if I may. She said things to the effect, terrorists have been valorized, Israel has been demonized as Nazis, and Jews have been threatened with mass massacre, with further massacre. And this just goes on to show that while Jews have been massacred on the 7th of October, there are those who are saying they will do this once again given an opportunity, and then there are people who are standing up in support of that mindset, even if not those individuals. This is what Suella Braverman was pointing out, that the British police are lenient towards these pro-Palestinian hate marches, that she called them, vis-a-vis the pro-Israel supporters. This is something that cost her her job.
Very interesting. You know, Sushant, when I was reporting in Israel, I was there for a couple of weeks, reporting on various aspects of what was going on. The belief in Israel for, perhaps the first time in a very long time, is that they've lost control of the narrative. They've lost control of the international opinion over what's happening between Israel and Gaza. The sacking of Suella Braverman would kind of validate that suspicion and that fear in Israel as well, that it is an entirely different sort of ecosystem that's calling the shots.
I wouldn't entirely agree with that, Shiv. What I would say is that the narrative is very sharply divided. There are a whole lot of people who say that, look, this is not Israel's fault alone. This was forced upon Israel, and what Israel is doing is the right thing to do because this is an existential threat to them, and they need to clean this up, right? So there are a range of people who are saying that. And yet there is this woke, leftist, so-called pseudo-liberal or liberal fascists, if you want to call them, crowd, which is there in the BBC, which is there in Sky News, which is there in Channel 4, which is all over the place, right? Which is there in academia in the Western world, especially in the UK. Which is taking a completely different line, and then there is the mobs on the street. Now, please remember, Shiv, and I don't want to, conflate, but let me give you an example. When we see the mobs attacking people, the Indian High Commission or the Hindus in the UK, just look at the attitude. These are Muslim mobs in the UK, most of them Pakistanis, who are attacking Hindus and blaming the Hindus for attacking them. We see something similar happening with the Jews. Let me give you another example. There is this Sikh gentleman, a restaurateur, by the name of Harnam Kapoor, right? He has been harassed. His family has been harassed with the worst kind of violence threatened against them, including threats of rape against his wife and daughter, all kinds of things. Have you seen the Metropolitan Police act against any of those guys? And yet, and we know who those guys are. We know that those guys are Khalistanis who are aligned with many of the radical Islamist Muslim mobs in the UK and with the Pakistanis. And who is the mayor of UK? Of London, sorry?
Yes.
And who does the police come under in operational terms? So, you start adding these things together. Maybe these are just straws in the wind, but this is the impression which a lot of us are getting sitting out here, that London or the UK is no longer a safe place. This was a place where people could go, take refuge. People, were safe. Violence of any kind was never condoned. But that is happening now, isn't it?
Selective
application violence is entirely condoned. And
selective application of the law, England turning into an Englistan, and certain sections seeing this as a foot in the door, that the law will not act against them, means that the next time, perhaps things will get even worse. Sushant, Sareen, thank you very much for your time and for that analysis. I saw your tweet and I wanted your words on this breaking story that we've gotten here. Gaurav continues to stay with me as we move from London now back to the scene of the actual conflict, which is the Israel-Gaza front. Now, the biggest story that has been playing out there over the weekend concerns one of the biggest hospitals in Gaza. It's called the Al-Shifa Hospital, where airstrikes have taken place on and around this hospital. Claims have been made of infants dying because of a lack of resources, lack of oxygen, lack of fuel. Horrifying images and accounts coming in from Gaza's biggest healthcare center. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, have hit back, as has become very common, with every allegation becoming a war of claim versus counterclaim, saying that Israel has supplied many liters of fuel to sustain this particular hospital, but it is the Hamas that has stopped the hospital from using it for obvious reasons. Who is correct? It's difficult to tell, as there continues to be a black hole inside the Gaza Strip. Watch this report.
Israeli troops advance on Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. Gaza's main hospital hit by series of powerful explosions. No power, very little fuel. The largest hospital in Gaza is in shambles amid deadly Israeli attacks. And the victims falling to the brutal war are innocent babies. Prematurely born babies are at the risk of dying. Newborns are reportedly being taken off incubators as Israel lays siege to the hospital compound. Israel, however, defended its action and released images of its troops supplying 300 liters of fuel to the hospital, while alleging that Hamas prevented the embattled medical center from accepting it.
The IDF has repeatedly stated, our war is with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We're doing everything we can to mitigate harm to civilians and increase humanitarian aid. In the last 24 hours, the IDF has delivered 300 liters of fuel to Shifa Hospital's doorstep. Yet the fuel remains untouched after Hamas threatened hospital staff.
Israel has repeatedly said that Hamas terrorists have turned tunnels under Al-Shifa Hospital into deep underground military headquarters, stockpiling ammunition used to attack Israel.
Hamas uses Shifa Hospital as a shield for Hamas terror infrastructure. Hamas wages war from hospitals. By operating from these hospitals, Hamas not only endangers the lives of Israelis, civilians, but also exploit innocent Gazan civilians as human shield. Shifa is not the only hospital, it is one of many. Hamas' use of hospitals is a systematic. Hamas terrorists operate inside hospitals precisely because they know the IDF distinguishes between terrorists and civilians.
Will innocent babies keep paying the price of this war? With Rajesh Pawar in Sedrot, Bureau Report, India Today.
My colleague Rajesh Pawar joins us from the ground in Israel. He's been reporting from around the Gaza Strip over the last many weeks. The focal point today and over the weekend, Rajesh, has become the Al-Shifa Hospital. Once again, a very familiar, crossfire of claims versus counterclaims. Infants, perishing in that hospital, fuel not being allowed to reach, airstrikes continuing in that area. What are you hearing? Very difficult to judge from this distance. What are you hearing from the ground?
Look, Shiv, as you also very well know, that modern day warfare is as much fought in the information arena as much it is fought on the ground by guns and airplanes and ships. And this is what we are seeing right now happening here. And let me tell you, today, Israel has banned Al Jazeera from Israeli soil. The reason being, Al Jazeera has been known for a long time to be the main tool of Islamist propaganda around the world, especially in the Western world and English-speaking world. So they have totally banned it today. And these claims cannot be verified. It is impossible to verify about these reports emanating from the hospital about children. But what I've heard from here is IDF has tried to provide a safe corridor, a safe passage for patients to leave these hospitals. And these corridors were attacked by Hamas terrorists by using anti-tank weapons. And also IDF claims that they have provided 300 liters of fuel to these hospitals so that generators can run, and the ICU especially that can be maintained. At the same time, they have placed a lot of ambulances to evacuate those patients who are critically ill or are in ICU. So there are claims and counterclaims, as you rightly said, but it is very difficult to believe what Al Jazeera puts up in the news, because that is generally with a view with propaganda. Shiv.
Okay, that's what Israel says is that they have been supplying fuel, but this is something that is being refuted from the ground. So once again, the grey zone of claims versus counterclaims in a very, very terrifying situation concerning the Al-Shifa hospital. Rajesh, thank you very much for that input from the ground. Now remember, amidst Israel's mounting offensive in Gaza, and let's make no mistake, there is a mounting humanitarian crisis there. India has just made a big vote against Israel, keeping in with a very nuanced and independent foreign policy, like I've been explaining here on the show. India has voted in favor of a resolution that condemns Israeli settlement activities on Palestinian territory. India was among an overwhelming number, 145 nations that had voted in favor of a resolution, along with several other countries condemning Israel's settlements. US, Canada, and 7 other countries voted against this resolution. It condemns Israel's settlement activities in Palestine, including East Jerusalem and in the occupied Syrian Golan, and any activities involving the confiscation of land, the disruption of livelihood of protected persons, the forced transfer of civilians, and the annexation of territory, whether de facto or through national legislation. Remember, India just a couple of weeks ago had voted or abstained in a resolution calling for a humanitarian pause in Israel's campaign against the Hamas. Keep watching India Today. Our war reporting will continue. It continues to be a big focus story for us. But after this very short break, our big deep dive into deep fakes. A couple of days after Southern star Rashmika Mandana was the victim of a deep fake viral video, we go deeper to show you how big this menace truly is and how dangerous it can possibly be.
You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. You are watching India Today, powered by Finest, Be Sustainable Change, a BNP Group company.
Traveling from different parts.
Armed with facts,
Looking at political back.
she takes the news by its horns.
You think the future of these students are not hampered?
Fierce, bold and direct, setting the tone for the biggest stories. From every corner and every angle. Expect nothing but the unfiltered truth.
News first, niceties later. Watch me, Nabila Jamal, on India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
In an interconnected world where the truth is so easily distorted and reality is often blurred, a new weapon has emerged: deepfakes. Celebrities, politicians and influencers the world over have been targeted by deepfakes for over half a decade. But the two cases involving Bollywood actresses that have come to light in India in the past week have left everyone shell-shocked. In the next 30 minutes, we'll explore the dark side of deepfakes and find out what we can do to protect ourselves from the perils of this technology. Hold on to your seats, because this is an episode that